Hi, Tea Society. Welcome back to the Antisocial Planet. And today we are checking out some more Bleach, episode 245. Yes, look, when I start jumping all over the place, I can't keep track of it. But I'm excited to see where we're going with this because we have Kenpachi coming into the mix, causing mayhem like he does. But he's a very interesting dynamic within all this Zanpakutō stuff that's going on. In the preview, it looks like we might be getting back to like Mayuri's Zanpakutō, which is probably the one I'm most worried about because, again, poisonous gas. I feel like that's not going to turn out well for people if it's just on a rampage. So we'll see. Soifang is still fighting with hers. There's a lot going on still. In 3, 2, 1, go. See, it's like the reflection of the Soul Reaper's soul that makes me most worried about Mayuri's Zanpakutō being part of this. You know? Cause Mayuri, like, might be on Soul Society's side, but like, is he a good person? Is he a person? I'm not entirely sure. At the very least, though, he did seem to be taking it seriously when we got to the end of, like, the last time we were kind of catching up with him, right? When he was doing, like, the experiments to be like, what happens if someone else, like, defeats the Zanpakutō? Or, like, how do we get the Zanpakutō back? And when he gets serious, that's usually when, you know, things get a little interesting when it comes to his abilities. I think usually when he's like messing around, that's when he's kind of in his most like mad scientist mode. But every once in a while he gets serious, and that's when you gotta really watch out. You kind of find out why he has the like authority and respect that he does. Oh, we had all this stuff with like Byakuya and everything too. I feel like there's so many threads going on, especially since I'm like jumping in the middle of other stuff. I feel like I kind of have to remember the context of like what arcs were happening around this, even though I know it's like filler, but still, I'm like, some of it's canon now though. I just have so much knowledge in my head when it comes to Bleach and like world building and lore at this point that like it consumes a part of me, you know? Not that I'm upset about it. It just makes things interesting. Of course he's like laughing. I love the contrast between these two. Like, talk about like opposites when it comes to like fighting attitudes, at least, right? Like, Byakuya is always very serious about what's going on. And Kenpachi's like, I'm gonna put everything I have into this fight, but I'm doing it because it's fun. Because I want to see what happens. We have also seen with Byakuya though, that he's also not willing to hold back all the time. Right? Like, he's like, if you want to be like, if you like, as a show of respect, right? That he's like, I'm going to fight you seriously because otherwise it would be like a disservice to your skills, right? It would be like disrespectful to who you are as a fighter if I didn't show up with everything I had. I wonder where Rukia is gonna end up. Is she gonna end up where the Zanpakutō is, or where her brother is? I know she was going for her brother, but if they're both using like the same ability that they can like sense, how do you know which is which? Well, we managed to tire him out a little bit. That's not nothing. Yeah, I'm like, he's just gonna find that entertaining. A little fight to the death is a wild way to phrase that. Intentionally. I don't believe for a second that Kenpachi isn't intentionally trying to push him to the point where it will be a, like, to the death kind of fight. Oh, hello! You were tiny before. The way that they're both, like, minorly inconvenienced by this. I feel like maybe we don't just run in, though. Yeah, again, poisonous gas. It's just so creepy. Not in its creepiest form, though. I've seen That's Near Blood War. I still have thoughts. Nightmares. The fact that, like, Byakuya is so unfazed. It's like stoicism to a whole different level. Oof, yeah. This is what I was worried about. This is what concerned me. And why everyone seemed real freaked out. Yeah, quite a risk to be, like, turning your back. Given the ability that we're dealing with. I like the strategy. She doesn't like not being able to figure things out. Don't lash out, though. I think that that's where we lose our edge. I don't know. Does it give you an advantage? You can be captured by a jar. You know what I mean? Okay, but, like, to be fair, don't we all love Yoroichi? Like, I get it. Like, if she was standing in front of me, I would be like, well, forgive and forget, right? Can't tell if we're getting upset or we're figuring things out. Oof. That was cool to have her, like, land on her toe, but not quite. Going into that whole, like, speed, right? Are we going for the eye? That's wild. I get, like, the smaller opponent being an issue, though. Like, because how do you keep track? But also, like, how do you hit a smaller opponent? Ooh. Uh-oh. On purpose? Nice. Predictable. True. Yeah, some Soul Reapers rely more on their Zanpakutō than others. Which is interesting to see how that dynamic kind of plays out. It makes sense for someone like Soifang to be like able to use other abilities, right? Because a lot of her fighting style is like less flashy, right? It isn't like these big, you know, knockout drag out fights. Makes me very uncomfortable. Oh, not the two of you. This is far more wholesome than I was expecting. Ooh! I feel like it's going to take a turn, though. You know, like, I just... I just feel like, yeah, there's gonna be a turn. It just feels a little bit like, you know, like when you pin like butterflies or moths to, ooh, like a board or whatever, and it just makes me unsettled. And we were like unhesitating with that. I'm assuming we figured some stuff out. Don't be like that. Don't be like that. I feel like every time there's any story that focuses on Mayuri, I'm just like, my nightmares do not need more material. Ooh, speak of the devil. The animation. To be fair, though, wouldn't we all be like that? Like, you tell me you wouldn't also just be like glitter and rainbows? I would. I wouldn't. Yeah, I would be running too. I don't trust him for a second. Yeah, I wouldn't let him anywhere near me. I'd be like, no, nope. Suddenly, my body is a sacred temple. Don't bring him into this. He's already been through some stuff because of you. Yeah, I would be like, nope. I'll find someone else to help me. Ooh, jeez. Of course, that's where the focus is. The choice of what he looks like as a monster, though. He's gonna want to figure that out. Oh, a little bit. Going through these episodes does hurt like a little bit. Yeah, can we get help from 4th Division instead? A little face off here of like, we know more than you might think we do. They're like the closest to arguing those two can get. I mean, just look at our girl. I don't like that we've angered it. Explains where we kind of caught up, though. We had like a cutaway before crashing into the fight earlier in the episode. Maybe it's just because Mayuri's Zanpakutō gives me like God Emperor vibes that I'm just like deeply disturbed. Ugh. One of y'all's gonna have to ask for help. I guess people are like out looking for injured at this point. Thank you for finding Kira. I'm protective. The way that he, again, like unflinchingly was like, I'm just going to destroy it. Like self-destruct. And then I'll do some experiments, I'll figure it out. Like no negotiation. I'm concerned. You concern me. Ugh, best captain. Fight me. Argue with the wall. Ukitake will continue to be like one of my favorite people in this whole series. Good question. I want to know about Byakuya. I want to know about the brainwashing. I want to know why we're fighting a bunch of hollows and the bleeding eyes. There's so much. Also, like if he's a Zanpakutō, where's your Soul Reaper? Right? No. Why do we have the butterfly? Because usually butterfly is like a soul, right? And again, where's your Soul Reaper? And like, the Soul Reaper has to be around for like Muramasa, right? Because like it says that the Zanpakutō is like destroyed when their Soul Reaper dies. So like there has to be a Soul Reaper around somewhere, right? True words have never been spoken. All right. Making moves? Oh, we're in the cave. Cool. Oh, that's a little terrifying. I'm assuming Byakuya is part of this because he was like, I need to find answers, and the best way to do that is to be like a double agent of some kind. Right? And like, again, to get the power back of like his Zanpakutō, so that that power can't be used against them as much, right? Like you can kind of manage it a little bit more if he's part of it. I'm assuming that's part of the plan. Look, I'm assuming there is a plan of some kind for Byakuya. But like, I still have so many questions. I can't remember how many episodes we have left. What? So many. Honestly, this filler arc's a lot longer than I was expecting in terms of just like episode numbers. I know like obviously they were buying time to get more of the like source material and everything, but it still kind of surprises me how long the filler arcs are in terms of just like making up that long of a story. You know? But I'm excited to see how all the mysteries kind of come together, because again, you have to end up at the same place so that there isn't like a obvious shift, right? Because I skipped over this when I was watching through the series. And I don't think I noticed anything. I think the only time I noticed something was after the first filler arc, because there were like the other characters that were like added in for like the first episode or whatever, but like aren't really important except during like filler stuff. So I'm just curious about how we get back to where we started. Yeah, I don't know if I would be like, let Mayuri figure out what's going on with the Zanpakutō. I mean, you just wear the same outfit. Truly a manifestation of the Soul Reaper's soul. y'all are still dressed the same. Someone going through this arc does make me very nostalgic because just after going through all of the stress and trauma of Thousand Year Blood War, some of this, I'm like, oh yeah, there was a time when we had all of these characters, you know what I mean? Or there was a time when things were doing all right and I could just live in denial and be like, it'll all work out, which is nice with this. Again, I know that everything has to end up back where we started because it's filler, and yes, there's stuff about it that has been made canon, but you still have to be able to get back to that place. At least, again, me going through the series, skipping over this arc initially, I didn't really notice anything. So I know like where we end up after this arc. So my real curiosity for this is like, how do we end up back there in terms of solving some of these mysteries? And I'm really curious about like the abilities here, right? Like, how do you get to a point where a Zanpakutō can be like manifested in like a physical form? How does that first happen? How does that ability get translated into other people? I know that there's like the other Zanpakutō, but there's also like this whole like illusion thing that's happening. If there's a Zanpakutō, there has to be a soul reaper, right? There has to be a Shinigami. So I'm just like, I'm curious about how all that is working out and what the plan is, right? In terms of what are we trying to accomplish? Going into the real world seems like something we don't want to do because I feel like that's gonna cause some other issues with some of the other people that are like there in the living world, the human world. But it's gonna be interesting to see how kind of all these pieces come together, because I feel like there is clues and things that I should be able to put together at some point and figure out what all is going on with it. But interested to see how this all kind of works together in terms of the world building, while also keeping in mind that because it's filler, it doesn't have to be something that kind of transfers over. Again, some of it's canon, but like also some of it is just to be within this arc and can be retconned afterwards. So how are we playing around with some of the world building and like magic systems and stuff in terms of how it's all going to come together and like how like the logistics of it works. But I did like getting to see some of the differences of like how the captains are like coming together and how they're dealing with this issue, right? Like it's gotten to the point where, one, we know enough about it that we can deal with the problem, but two, it's also become enough of a problem that they're like, we need to just fix it. Even like with Mayuri being like, I'm just gonna trigger the self-destruction because the alternative is that my Zanpakutō keeps causing issues. We don't figure out any further information. Someone else gets to use that power against me? I don't think so. So we're getting to the point where people are starting to make moves on like both sides, but we're getting to see Soul Society be like, this has to stop. Like we've gotten past the like initial shock of what is even going on to how do we fix the problem. So I'm excited to see how that kind of translates as we get into I think the last kind of, are we like halfway? I'll have to go back and count how many episodes it has been at this point, but it feels like we're at this like halfway transition point of we've had the initial scramble and shock of what's going on and everyone trying to get their bearings, and now they're like, oh, now we fix the problem. We get into like almost like triage mode, literally and figuratively in some ways. So I'm excited to see how that all comes together, and I hope you enjoyed watching that along with me. You can click this playlist to go into my previous reactions, or you can subscribe so the next time I post a Bleach reaction. I will see you in the next video. Bye.